Today on Nova Legends podcast, I have Katie Smrcka-Duffy and Tim Fudd, better known these days as Jose and Azzi's parents. Guys, thanks for joining me.
And we don't want to forget
Thanks
John.
for having us.
Oh,
John. Yeah.
that's right, because John got some publicity last week from Wakefield. It's a very nice tweet.
Yeah.
He's the team manager at Wakefield. So anyway, we can get into all that. But guys, welcome. Nice to meet you, Katie.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. So let me give you guys' background. I mean, two of the best basketball players in the history of Northern Virginia. Katie went to O'Connell, and I think you won a city championship as a freshman, and then you end up transferring to Madison, which is a little backwards to what you see these days. And then you won 2 regional championships at Madison for Pat Deegan, and got to 2 state finals before going to NC State in the ACC. And then transferring rookie of the year in the NC State, transferring to Georgetown. And I believe you were Big East first team at least 2 years. Is that right, Katie?
I think it was actually second team, but that would be for a whole nother podcast.
That's a whole other podcast. Anyway, great career. Drafted in WNBA. I know you've been coaching, and we'll catch up on some of the other things you've been doing. And then Tim Fudd, a guy that I watched play a lot in high school. Tim played at Chantilly, one of the most improved players I ever saw. The steps that he took, the strides that he took, and then his senior year, he won the region. He waited for Grand Hill to graduate, won the region, took his team to the state championship, ran into a tough Bayside team there. But got a scholarship to play for American University. Chris Nockey told me he was going to redshirt him. But you just played so well and came on so strong. You had 4 great seasons that you were on your way to have another great season. You got injured and you had to redshirt. And I think you and Katie both been through serious injuries. But anyway, I think I got the broad sketches of your guys' career.
Yep.
Get it right? Okay. Well, look, let's talk about Jose real quickly, just the season that's going on right now. So I'm really good friends with Keith Leonard. He kind of helped me start all this social media stuff. And so I've been to a lot of the games, actually the last 2 seasons. And, so this is the first time I've ever seen Jose play, even though I'd heard a legend of him. I know he had a good year last year over at Wakefield. But I've just been really impressed by Jose, the way he stepped into this team. And, I didn't think the team was going to be that talented this year. I thought they had much better roster last year. And when I go to their games, they seem to win ugly, but I look up and they're up by 20. And I haven't been able to figure out this team. They've had a dominant season. And when you look at the roster, they have a solid team. What are you guys' thoughts on this year's Marshall team?
I've been very impressed with them. I think Coach Lynn does a great job over there at getting them to run offense and play basketball the right way, right? Like they move the ball, they share the ball. I know Jose fits in that he is a win first kid. Like he just wants to win. And if that means that he doesn't shoot the ball once, if that means he shoots it 10 times, 20, it really doesn't matter to him. He wants to win. He wants to compete and win. And, he's with that team first. He loves his teammates and cares about his teammates. And so he wants them to be successful, and whatever that's going to take for him to do, he's willing to do it.
Yeah. Tim, you have something to add to that, or?
Yeah. He's a funny kid because, we've been blessed with the opportunity to have his sister go along her journey, and then Jose kind of was there along the way for her, and where he's been kind of a late bloomer, in the sense that when it comes to him actually working on his game. Like today, I went to the grocery store to get something for dinner, and I came home, I pulled up, and he's out front and shooting on the hoop out front, and that's the things that are starting to manifest in him now, where he's wanting to put extra work in, he's willing to put extra work in, and his love is starting to blossom for the game of basketball. He's always liked it. He's always been attracted to it, but to that grind part of it, he from an individual perspective hasn't always been him. He's more of a social butterfly, so he likes to be working around his teammates or his peers, but that's something that we're starting to see grow in him, and hopefully continue to fester and lead him to the journey he wants to go to. So
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Well, yeah, definitely is. You guys have done a tremendous job. And just to give Jose's background, and I read this in the Washington Post. I guess Tim, your mother, who used to be prominent at all the Chantilly basketball games, everyone knew your mother.
Yeah.
Jose was a foster child in her home, and
Yes.
unfortunately, your mom passed. I
Yep.
guess when Jose was 2 or 3 years old.
No,
And,
he was 5.
oh, 5 years. Okay.
He was at 5 at the time. So she had him for about 3 years. He and his brother.
Okay. Yeah. And so you and Katie adopted him and John, and
Yes.
and so he got dropped in a family with incredible basketball talent, and it just goes to show you. I'm not sure if you guys are involved with his birth parents, but it just goes to show you how important it is. How you're raised. I mean, here's a kid. There's actually a Latina kid on his former team Wakefield that shoots the ball well as well. But Latino kids gravitate to football or soccer as we call it, and it's just amazing. You drop this kid into a family of 2 great basketball players, and look how he's developed.
But I
Yeah,
will say
yeah.
from a young age, he was able to pick things up really quickly. So if he had chosen soccer, if he had chosen baseball, like whatever he put his mind to, he was going to be good at. Like he just has that knack to figure things out. We were going for a family bike ride one day, and the day before he got all the bikes out, changed all the bike tires, he had no experience with that, but he's like, hey, I'm just going to figure this out and get it done. Like whatever, he is just so uncannily good at just picking things up. He can watch something, he can hear something, and he's got it. So, and he rebounded a ton for Azzi, and he played, but like Tim said, never put like his own time into it. But he was practicing, I think, with Azzi's high school team during COVID, and Azzi wasn't practicing that day or something like that. And she looked over and she's like, like, how is he so good? And he puts no work into this. Like, it's just like the movement and the stuff is just natural for him, but it just, he watches and just picks things up. And, so it's basketball, I think, because we're basketball, but it really, really for him could have been anything.
Yeah. Tim, did you want to add something to that, or?
No. I mean, she hit it on the head. I mean, he's very gifted naturally, not necessarily with the game of basketball in and of itself, but from the mindset where he, as a young boy, will go and he'll mimic things he sees on the TV, or he'll mimic things he sees on a video, and it just kind of naturally happens for him, which is not normal. It's not a normal thing, because basketball is such a contradiction of movements, and it's not like it's not like your football movements or your soccer movements. The movements are not are atypical. So to be able to pick it up so quickly and put it in play and implement it right away is something that is pretty impressive for sure.
Yes. Well, he fits in great with the Marshall team because it is a very unselfish team. I mean, when you have a superstar like Matthew Leonard is a pass first kind of guy, it kind of feeds into the whole team. And I was talking to Keith about this the other day. Jose is the most unselfish shooter. Most shooters, they have like a mentality, kind of like both you guys had. I'm going to get the ball, I'm going to shoot it, I'm going to score every time. Jose is almost a reluctant shooter. He knows he can do it, but he always shoots within a team concept. It's really
I mean, I when I watch the games, I'm like, shoot it.
Yeah.
Like in my, dude, I would have jacked that. I would have taken that. But he happily makes that next extra pass to the more open kid, or he knows what Lynn wants in the system. And hey, I have a good shot, but here's the great shot that we're going to get, and he'll pass his shots up. I did not have that mentality. I didn't watch him when he was younger, but I know I didn't have that mentality.
They called me the black hole when I was playing. They knew if they threw it into the post, I was told to score, and that was it. There was a one-track mind. I was scoring. I think my career high in assists while at AU in a year was 19. So that tells you.
That's really bad.
Thanks so much.
It's funny, Tim, because I watched you play a lot in high school, and Chantilly, Martino runs a real team concept, and you fit within there. You were the man, you were the post player, you were going to score, but I didn't feel like you wouldn't pass the ball. And it was funny because later on we played in Arthur Jackson's league, and all of a sudden you didn't pass the ball at all. And I was like, what?
No. That kind of manifested itself when I was at AU. Not that's you can blame Knock for that one. He came in the locker room one year and on the whiteboard he's like, preseason talking. He's like, this is how things are going to go. Tim's going to get 18 and 20 shots a game. With a transfer from Duke from the area, Christian asked, who's German, a natural born German citizen. And so Christian came in, he was like, Christian's going to get 15 to 16 shots, and Daryl's going to get maybe 12 to 13, and he goes, all the rest of the shots are for the rest of you. You got to figure that out as we go, but this is how it's going to go. So he put that in motion where I knew I was going to get my 20 and
right.
take advantage of it.
As my friend used to always say, growing up, I'm gonna get mine.
Yeah, I'm gonna get mine. I already got. You put the chicken on the cake table, the turkey on the table. I'm already carving out my 20%. So let's go.
Yeah. Well, as we handicap Marshall's season ahead, I mean, they only have to win 2 games, qualify for the state tournament. What do you guys think is the key for them to advance to the state tournament?
I think they have to continue to do the things that they've been doing. They are very, very good defensive team. I like to liken myself as a defensive guru as a basketball coach, and I watch their movements and their rotations and help situations, and they're one of the best teams that I've seen at the high school level. Public school wise, I've not seen everybody, but they really, for a team that doesn't have a whole lot of athleticism, they may really take advantage of the opportunities to rotate and get hands on balls, tips, and steals and deflections to disrupt possessions, and they really make the game ugly, like you said earlier. Defensively, they'll grind it out, and all of a sudden you're looking, they're winning 59-39, and
Yeah.
it's like so I think that they got to continue with that mindset. The offense is going to come and go. Don't get too high, don't get too low with that. But the defensive end of the floor is going to help win basketball games and potentially a championship for them.
Yeah, truly one of the best defensive teams I've seen up here ever.
Yeah.
Hey, did you want to add?
No, I would just say rebound too. Like they need all 5 people rebounding. I know I'm a critique first parent, so I'm watching Jose and I'm like, that's a rebound you should have had, right? Like there's like they need everybody rebounding, everybody boxing out. It can't just be on, the 2 bigs.
Yeah. The draw this year is not bad. I mean, Hayfield is even better this year than last year. But other than that, I think actually Marshall's right there, and I think they have a big opportunity. Well, let's
but they don't play. Isn't it they're 2 regions, right? I can't understand how things are going. Actually, Hayfield's in another region, right?
Yeah. So they won't play Hayfield. Okay. So the old northern region that we grew up with is now divided into the northern region, which is the Concord and the Liberty, the northern region, the northern part of the old northern region, and then the Occoquan region, which is like Robinson, South County, even South Hayfield. So they won't play. They'll have to play probably either South Lakes or Madison to qualify for state if they assuming they beat Oakton. So, but the road is it's very doable. So obviously, as I said, I'm a fan. I actually coached Jerry in summer league at Marshall many years ago. I just can't believe how well he's done. So, well, look, before we get to the star of the show, or at least one of the stars of the show, Azzi, let's hear a little bit about Jon. I saw the social media post by Wakefield. I know he's a manager. Tell us a little bit about Jon and some of the things that Jon is into.
Jon has he loves basketball, but was not blessed with any sort of height. But he has been running track. He's done cross country, indoor track, and outdoor track, all 4 years now. And actually this winter was running indoor track and, being the practice player / manager for Wakefield. So, he just loves being involved, he loves the community over there, loves the atmosphere, and like really has become quite a social butterfly over there. And, I'll be at the gym and there'll be a Wakefield kid and I'll say something to them like, oh, how's school or whatever. And then they'll look at me and I was like, oh, I have a son at Wakefield. They're like, yeah, we know Jon Fudd. We know him, and it just, it's really fun to have watched his evolution from when we first got him, where he was quiet and shy and a little socially awkward, and, him blossom into this real confident, senior.
That's great. Yeah. Tim, do you want to add that or?
No, she's covered it all. I mean, I'll add the fact that, from where he began, Jon had some difficulties with his birth mom and the situation where they were raised early on, and unfortunately for him, he was in that situation for 4 years. and whereas Jose was only there for 2 years, so he wasn't as grossly impacted. But Jon was impacted with developmental delays because there was not a nurturing environment for them early on, and he missed some very key thresholds from a child developmental standpoint, and so it kind of impacted him early on. And to see where he, like, literally, we would go hug him, we would wrap our arms around him and hug him, and he would just like fall into your arms, like, and you'd have to put his arms around you, to teach him how to hug. He had dexterity issues, couldn't open water bottles, couldn't turn a doorknob, all the stuff that he should have already had accomplished and learned at a young age. He didn't have. I mean, he was late losing his teeth. I think he lost his first tooth at 8 or 9 years old, and everything was delayed for him. And so where we first got him and the struggles that we saw,
and I will add, I would just add, like, socially, he had a lot of struggles.
Yeah.
Like, he couldn't read the room, for lack of a better way of putting it, right? And so he went through a long period in young elementary school where he was bullied pretty badly. So to see that growth and to see, that community really embrace him and genuinely like him and care for him, and him just feel this confidence and walk with this confidence is really heartwarming.
Yes. Yeah. So that's something it's been magnificent to witness. I think Katie and I both set out in the beginning part of it to do whatever we could to make him have a great childhood, not only him but both of them. And so we just didn't know what the end goal was going to be. Where was he going to be able to get to? But it's been great to see that transformation for him.
Yeah. Well, was it a little uncomfortable? Obviously there was some tension between Marshall and Wakefield, Jose's old squad, and Jon is the manager. We don't get into any details, but was it a little bit uncomfortable for Jon to kind of to be over at Wakefield?
Remember that whole read the room thing?
Yeah.
No, not uncomfortable at all. He was loving it. He there was no, and I, thank the coaches over there at Wakefield and the community over there. There was no, whatever they were saying about Jose and doing with Jose, and if there was any negativity and that kind of stuff, that was kept to Jose. It wasn't Jon. And Jon never came home and said, oh, they're talking trash about Jose. Like, he just, that just wasn't a thing. I think when they played at Wakefield, someone posted something and there was some negativity and then there was some stuff in the crowd, but that wasn't the whole spirit of the gym, right? That was a one-off. And I think they, Jon tried out for the freshman team, basketball team, got cut. He tried out for the JV team as a sophomore, got cut. Tried out for varsity and JV as a junior, got cut. And this year they said, hey, you know what? Like, you come and practice with us and be a practice player and a manager and whatever. Then gave him a jersey and put him in a game. Like, there's zero negativity there, right? Like, what needed to be done for Jose needed to be done for Jose. And that's his path, and his journey is different, and as parents, our job is to do the best by each kid individually. Azzi went to a private school. There's nothing wrong with that, right? Each kid had their own path and their own journey. And there was no negativity or shade thrown on Wakefield because Jose needed to leave, right? Like, that wasn't the case at all. And I know we've been very appreciative of them, accepting Jon and making him feel welcome and a part of the group. And the kids were great. Like, the players were great with him. And if he sees them out or he'll text them there, it's not, I don't know how to explain it other than, like, it's just genuine. Right. So whatever anybody else sees on the outside in that one little skerfuffle, that's not the whole spirit of it. The whole spirit was very positive. The whole year has been very positive.
Well, you guys done it. I'm sorry, Tim.
No, I agree. It's a very, very good environment for Jon.
Well, you guys done an amazing job, and I know you get a lot out of them too. But it's still great when folks, adopt kids and do such an amazing job raising them. So you guys deserve, lots of credit for that. But let's talk a little bit about Azzi. So, she was, I think, one of the top high school players in the country, maybe number one. Amazing player at St. John's. A internet sensation with her YouTube highlights and stuff. I never saw her play live, but I've seen her play a million times on YouTube. Talk a little bit about Azzi's development. Named after Jennifer Azzi, who was a tremendous player about 15, 20 years ago, I believe. It's been a while.
Yep.
But to talk a little bit about Azzi, what's made her so special and her and her development? Talk about a little bit about her development.
I would say, you know, we talk about it and we're like, well, if we ever had another kid, like we couldn't recreate that because there was no intention of creating that, right? Like I think there's some parents out there that that's their goal, right? They want their kid to be here. We wanted our kids to be happy. We wanted them to find something they were passionate about. And at a certain point with Azzi, when she started playing, I mean, she did tap and ballet and some swim classes, and we tried tennis, but I didn't know anything about tennis, so that didn't work. She tried soccer. Like we just kind of like tried a bunch of different things to see what she would like, and she really liked the social atmosphere of basketball. And I thought she was awful when she started. Tim will say differently. He thought that she was pretty good. I wouldn't agree, but as she started to get better and better, I think at a certain point we looked at each other and just thought, hey, we could get a free education, or she could get a free education where we don't have to pay anything for her schooling, right? She could get it. She could come out of college with no debt, and that's a huge win for us, right? No one, if you asked us 20 years ago when she was born, like nowhere in our wildest imagination would we ever think that it would have gotten to this. And I think, you know, the lifestyle that we live, and that's, you know, what the boys have been able to have as well, is we both coach, I train. And so they're always around the gym. They're always around people. Azzi grew up with, you know, these female role models that were in middle school, in high school, in college. And, you know, they took her on at like a little sister. You know, she would be on the side in a hot gym. And if they, you know, if someone subbed out, she would, you know, spritz them with cold water and give them a, you know, some ice or something to cool down. I mean, it just like that kind of village, it takes a village, you know, old cliche is, I think it's really true. Like when she was first born and I was training, I would go to the gym and she would be with me. And one mom would show up with her kid and she just looked at me one day and said, hey, you need to start bringing the stroller because we're going for walks. Okay. And then it got to, she would just take her home. And then she would bring her back. And then it was, you know, like I literally have never paid for a babysitter. I think she did 6 months of like a preschool daycare, and that was it. My first year coaching, because she was too little. But then other than that, she came around with me. Her first sleepover was at like 3 or 4 with a high school junior. And she didn't want to come home because she was loving it. So I just think that all of that built together or put together built kind of who she is. You know, obviously we have a certain level of expertise, right, with basketball, but it all had to work. The fact that we could keep coaching her is a testament to the kind of human being she is, because I train plenty of kids who don't want to hear anything from their parents. I think is a testament to Tim. I'm not that nice as a coach. And Tim is a yeller, but after the game is real happy and really like, let's go get ice cream and let's have fun. And I'm more like, you sucked, you don't deserve ice cream. But Tim did a great job of like separating parent and coach, so that when it was coach time, it was coach time, and when it was parent time, it was parent time. And then, you know, somehow we were able to find like-minded kids, like-minded parents that, you know, that trusted us with their kids, and Azzi loved them like that, like that's her family. And I just, you know, it just, this is the way it was supposed to happen, you know, like that. There's no way we could recreate that and find the families that we had. And I don't know. It's hard.
Well, first of all, like she's not far removed from that AAU journey, but her journey was so different. Like she played with the same coach. She started basketball at the age of 7, and she played with one coach who didn't use a whiteboard, and was pointing to things before him. And that at the time I was a college coach at Longwood, and I'm watching these practices, and she'd be the only coach in there, and she was unable to demonstrate. I'm not going to not body shame or anything like that, but like she couldn't demonstrate. And I was like, I texted Katie while I'm at practice with her, and this is like me and Azzi's like our bonding time, because I spent weeks away at Longwood during the season. I'd come home on a day off or whatever, and go take her to practice, and that was my bonding time. I was like, Katie, why won't she just ask me to help her with practice? It just seems like there's an opportunity for her to utilize. Like, I'm here, she just utilize us while we're in the gym or whatever, and she never did. So
You never asked me for help either.
Yeah, and I asked, and Katie coached in the program, in that same program at the time, and I asked her at the end of the season, and I was like, listen, I'd love to be able to take this team on and be the head coach, and did it really, really respectfully, professionally. I presented my resume, and
Like he submitted his full out resume.
full out resume,
And
like
they
showed
offered
why
him
I'm
the B team.
qualified, right? Yeah, and she said, "Oh no, you could be the B team coach." And it's like that's not gonna happen. So that's how I started coaching Azzi. It was not what we sought to set out to do. I didn't want any parts of that because we've seen so many times where those relationships just turn so combative and confrontational, and your parent is trying so eagerly and to get the kid to do certain things, and the kid just like is fighting back and being resistant and digging their heels in. And I didn't want any part of that. I just wanted to have a father-daughter relationship, and didn't want anything to interfere with that. So that was really, really important to me. So when we started coaching her, it was like, listen, we're going to coach you, but like you got to understand that we get paid to do this. Like at the time, I was still doing a little training, but it was like people are paying us to train and paying us to coach. So if we're spending time coaching you or training you, and you don't want to give your all, you're essentially like stealing money from us. So it was like a comment, and we had to have that conversation maybe 3 times throughout the whole time she was playing. Like, listen, if you don't want to do this, just say it, and we can stop doing it, and we could go do something else. And she always answered like, no, I want to do it. I want to do it. And so, okay, well, this means, I would say to her, I was like, there will never be a time when a college coach will tell you or tell us or say about you that you've never been coached. Because I was a college coach, and we say it about kids all the time. Kids never been coached. He's never been coached and needs to figure it out, what have you. But she never never relented. There was times when as a coach really, really hard on her. Katie thinks
Yeah,
I
like the
was really
time
soft on her.
he might have kicked her out of practice one day because she had to pee. Because who has to pee in the middle of practice? If you had to poop, that's one thing. That's acceptable. But you had to pee,
listen,
so get out of my practice. You're not focused.
I am only who I am because of the people who raised me or coached me. So Knox got to get the example of that. How many days he wouldn't let me go to the bathroom in the middle of practice? So that's all. That's I'm blaming him on that one.
Yeah. Well, Katie, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but you had a reputation of a little bit of a trash talker when you played, and Tim definitely had talked some trash. I've actually heard that. Does Azzi have that side of you guys as well? Is she kind of brash when she plays?
No, she just plays.
No.
And I would say I probably didn't talk too much trash when I played. I just answered questions in the papers very honestly. But I wasn't really a talker when I played. It was more like I just did my playing, but then you'd ask me a question and I wouldn't sugarcoat it.
Julian, she talks trash to me every day. Every day.
That's only because you have to talk trash back to deal with him.
Exactly. Yeah, I was wondering if you guys play video games. The trash talking must be at an elite level here.
We decided a long time ago that for our sanity, we can never be on opposite teams.
Exactly.
In the sanctity of our marriage, we could not compete against each other. That you want to see World War III pop off? That's when you're gonna get it. Yeah. We just know which buttons to push.
Yeah. But one thing I'm reminded of is I know a lot of great athletes who have to pay someone else to coach their kids because the kids just don't respond to their parents. Sometimes I was talking more about soccer, but I'm sure basketball is the same thing. So when you have a private trainer, private coach, it's usually someone else. Have you found that to be the case often that in most situations, it might be worth having a third party coach your child rather than try to do it yourself?
I think for a lot of people, yeah. Like I said, I think we were very fortunate with Azzi that and I do think it helped that like she saw us coaching everybody else, right? So it's not like, oh, I know the game and I'm going to coach because you're playing. And in fact, she played Arlington Travel when she was younger, and they had they didn't want parent coaches. And so I had to get approved to be a coach. And I'm like, look, I'm a coach who has a kid. I'm not coaching because I have a kid. Like I was coaching way before she played. And then Tim, the same thing. So I think the fact that she could look around and see other people really engaged and interested in what we had to say and see people coming to get what we know. made it easier for her to say, oh, okay, like you guys really do know. And it wasn't that we didn't ever butt heads. We definitely butted heads some, but like Tim said, she would always come back and, and appreciate the time that we were giving her, as well as, respecting the fact that we really know what we're talking about. There was never a, like, I know how to do this better, or this person over here is doing it better. And quite frankly, it was, like, we didn't need to go to anybody else. And we looked when she was younger and she was, we had coached her for a few years. We, every 3 to 6 months, kind of sat down, or maybe at the beginning of the fall, winter season, beginning of the spring, summer season, and just said, is she still learning? Do we still have a good relationship? Are her teammates still learning? Are they still growing under us? And if the answer was no to any of those, we were ready to look outside. But we did, we looked left and right and kind of looked at other programs and watched people coach. And not to sound pompous or conceited or anything, but we really just didn't find anybody who could do what we did. I coached in the winter. I coached like their travel stuff in the winter, and then Tim would coach in the spring. So when he would come back, he would be my assistant. Didn't work out so well with him being an assistant, but he would be my assistant in the winter, and then I'd be his assistant in the spring. And like he said, we wanted these kids, and not just her, we wanted all the kids to feel like if they were going to go to the next level, they had experienced different styles of coaching. Although we taught the same things, right? We ran the same offenses, the same press break, we did the same defenses. I'm a very different coaching style than him. I'm very blunt and I'm very sarcastic, and I'm very much so like, if you're not doing what I need you to do, you'll just get in better shape and we'll run. Where he's very much more like a yeller and clapping and yelling and being loud, and felt like he could motivate that way, rather than he didn't want to spend time in practice doing extra running. Right. So it just
well, part of that is also my style of coaching as well. Is like, my practices are moving at a fast pace. So I feel like you're going to get your conditioning, because we're going from drill to drill to drill to drill to drill. And it's all high pace, high intensity. And that usually worked out.
Yeah, I was the same mindset. My practices were the same, but there were just some days where it was like, and I tried to turn everything into a competition, right? So, if this team wins, this team runs. If we're playing one-on-one zigzag, if your player, like let's say I'm guarding you, Julian, and we're playing one-on-one first person to 5 and you win, I do double. Like, where's my competitive spirit? I can't let you win. Right. Like, so there was in my practices, there's always like a winner loser and then a penalty for losing, right. To foster that competitive spirit. But yeah, I mean, I just think we were very fortunate with Azzi's willingness to let us coach her, with the other parents, like trust and willingness to let us coach them. And I don't know how many kids we've coached over the years, and we had a core group stay with her. One played at Harvard, one's at UNC, one's at Columbia, one's in engineering at Georgia Tech, not playing basketball. One's a nurse, just got her position at Virginia Hospital Center in her nursing residency, right? So they were highly motivated, really smart kids. One's what's Senneman at UNC.
She's
not a Rhodes Scholar.
No, it's not a Rhodes Scholar. She's the highest scholar. She's
like everything paid for. Really smart kid. So Azzi was surrounded by highly motivated academic kids, high quality human beings, and parents that trusted us, let us coach their kids. I don't think we ever had one issue with a parent complaining about us being too hard, complaining about playing time, there was just no complaints. And I think that stemmed from they trusted us and knew that we weren't in it just for Azzi. We were in it for all of them. And as parent coaches, when Azzi was younger and people didn't really know who she was yet, didn't really know that we were together, people would come up to me after the game and say, "Oh, your daughter had a great game." And I'd say, "Thanks. Which one's my daughter?" And they would point out our point guard, right? The little point guard, who happens to be white. And then tell Tim, "Oh, your daughter had a great game. She's such a great defender." And then Tim would be like, "Oh, which one's my point guard?" And it's the girl Sennem, who's at UNC, who's really, really smart. No one knew, because we coached them all the same. I would say we were a little harder on Azzi, but everybody got yelled at. Everyone got praised. Everyone was treated the same. When it was time to go to ice cream, they all went to ice cream, right? Everyone was treated the same. And it drives me crazy when you watch parent coaches that you can pick out immediately who their kid is, right? And that means that all the other parents know that you're coaching your kid for your kid. And that's something that we took very seriously and we just did not do. Every one of those kids was our kid.
Usually the coach's kid's the one that shoots the ball all the time, but my experience. Now, if you guys found that you can be a good coach and not a good trainer, one-on-one trainer, or or a great trainer and not a good coach, or do you find the skills and the talent pretty much the same? If you're good at one, you're good at both.
No, 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 no. So coaching is like very, very, very difficult profession. It's an inherently negative profession. So where training is, and we do both. We've done both. I don't train as much anymore due to my time, lack of time, I should say. But in training, it's more positive than negative. You're constantly encouraging the kids to continue to try new things, continue to be risk takers, and so on and so forth. Whereas when you're coaching, you don't really want them to be risk takers. Like you want them to be kind of more so in the box and play a certain style the way you need them to play. So I think it's very difficult for people to do both. And because what happens is also when you're training, and let's say you're training a certain individual and you start coaching that individual, it's hard to separate the two because you're with this kid all the time, and all of a sudden you're coaching them. It's hard not to want the best for them and coach them in a way that's going to help urge them to be more successful. So I would say it's really, really, really difficult to do both. What do you think, Katie?
I agree. And I think going on your positive versus the negative is it's really easy for a trainer I think there's a lot of really good trainers out there. I think there's also a lot of trainers that just see dollar signs, right? Who don't know how to break things down, who are teaching skills that are I was at the gym one day, and there was a guy in there with a little kid, like a little kid who maybe didn't even know how to do a layup the right way. And he's teaching him how to do a step back jumper. And, and I'm like it blows my mind. The thing with training is by the time a parent realizes that their kid isn't evolving the way they need to evolve, it's almost too late. Right. But it's really easy for a trainer to say, oh, you're great. You're great at this. I don't know why your coach isn't playing you more. Well, if it goes more to just offensive skills, you might be able to put the ball in the bucket some, but if you're giving up the same number of buckets at the other end, how productive are you? If you're a shoot first person and you're taking shots away from other people and you're not playing within the confines of a team, how valuable are you? Right. So there's a lot that goes into that. But I think both take a certain amount of like savvy, right? You have to be able to read players. You have to be able to coach people fairly, but that's not necessarily equally, right? If Tim had a player that he never yelled at, never. And he said, and she'll laugh to this day and say, yeah, he never yelled at me. And he said, well, she just couldn't handle it at that point, right? Like she wasn't ready for me to be that hard on her. But in order to get everything out of her, we could get out of her, I had to coach her this way. Where the kid who's at UNC on the academic scholarship, I mean, that kid could take a charge, dive after a loose ball, and then the ball slip out of her hands and Tim's screaming at her because she could handle it, right? And he's like, you needed to pull that ball in. So you have to know. And fortunately for us, none of the kids were like, well, you don't yell at her and you yell at me, but because they all understood. But getting on a team environment, you have to be able to motivate an entire group of people, right? And your role is this, and your role is this, and I have to get you to buy in. And you may think your role should be A, but your role is B, and I have to get you to buy in for the greater good. Where training, I have to be able to break it down. You may not understand something the way I'm explaining it to you. I mean, I've had kids who have they've just had like a brain block on something simple, right? That's something someone else picked up like that, but they take 3 weeks to pick it up. And you just got to figure out how to continue to encourage them, maybe try it a little bit differently, say it a little bit differently. And so I think both of them, like the interpersonal communication and the skills are huge, but they are vastly different. And I know when I started coaching, I'm nowhere near like 20 years ago when I started coaching, I was nowhere near as like aggressive and confident and, end of game situation. Like I've grown with that. And the same thing with training, right? Like how to break groups down, how to break skill sets down, how to have a beginner, an intermediate, and an advanced kid in the gym. Like Azzi would work out all the time with everything that I did, and she would constantly be the best player in the gym. So how do I get her to grow while allowing all these other people to grow at the same time, right? How do you differentiate the same skill to different players in the same group? So it's hard. And, I think that as with anything, like you get better at it over time if you're, a willing learner and have a growth mindset.
Do you guys recommend that the trainer have a relationship with the coach so that they're on the same page? Like if you're training this person, you're like, Jose, you're a great shooter. You gotta get that 3-pointer. And the coach is like, Jose, I need you to be a role player on this team. Your role in this team is not going to be to shoot every time you get the ball. Do you find that there could be a conflict between trainer and coach, and they should try to get on the same page?
They're always a conflict.
Yeah, I don't think coaches really want to hear from trainers. Me as a coach, I wouldn't want to hear from a trainer, right? Like that. But I am a trainer, but I wouldn't want to hear from. I don't want some trainer coming to tell me what I see, right? I that's just me. Maybe there's other coaches who would be more open to it, but that's
like a trainer's mindset. A trainer who's not a coach, their mindset typically is they go to their trainees game and they want to see the game. After the game, they offer all this constructive criticism and feedback. And I didn't see you try the move that we worked on the other day in practice or in our workout, and you need to do that move. But it's like the coach may have you, like you said, in a role. You're not allowed to go out on the perimeter because you're a 6'3" post player, right? You're not going to be allowed to go on the perimeter and put the ball on the floor and drop to the rim. You're not getting many opportunities to do that. And the other part about it people don't understand is this, and it's not talked about enough, is that when you're in training, the ball is in your hands 100% of the time, especially if you're one-on-one, right? But when you get to practice and games, you might touch the ball. Maybe if you're the main guy, you might have, if you're the point guard. So you take Marshall, for instance, Jason, who's the point guard, has the ball in his hands probably 30% of the time. And the rest of everybody else their numbers are dwindling from there, right? So you look at Matthew. Matthew probably has the ball in his hand probably like maybe 10% of the time. Then Marshall moves the ball and everybody touches it. But you look at the number of times that people touch it and for how long they touch it, it doesn't add up to a strong, like a vast amount of minutes for you to. So are you supposed to just go every time the ball touches your hands? You start to do the and one mixtape because your trainer said you wants you to see to make that move? No, the game isn't played that way, right? And I think that's one of the biggest things. And you could judge a trainer based off of how their kids perform in game situations, meaning that if they're out there trying to dribble and do every dribble move that they've been taught for the last 6 weeks, the trainer is misleading them. Because the truth of the matter is, like, as trainers, we show you all of these different dribble moves, and sometimes they're combo moves. But if you watch the game at a higher level, you watch the game at let's say the college level, you watch men's basketball at the Division I level, how many times do you see those guys having to make a double move, a combo move to get to the basket? It is usually in straight lines, 1, 2, 3 dribbles, and get into spots where they need to get to quickly, as opposed to the ball between the leg crossovers, behind the backs, and side steps. And that's more of an NBA thing because those guys are getting paid the big bucks to entertain, right? So I don't. That's not really often. I think the kids are not informed about that often enough. And I think the coaches are left to say, "Be the bad guy. Don't do that. We don't need you to do that. We don't need you to dribble. You only can dribble 2 times, and then you got to pass, or you got to shoot, or whatever else you're going to do. But you can't just dribble haphazardly."
That reminds me of soccer. So I was a basketball player. My son was a pretty good soccer player, and they just practice dribbling all the time, especially when they're young. By the time they get into high school, they're now out to dribble. It's all one touch. The ball has to move. So all that dribbling, no one does it except for 1 or 2 players on the field. Everyone else, it's all one touch.
Exactly.
So it's just,
but all the skills and drills that you do working on it just gives you a massive amount of ball control. So when you need it, you can draw on it.
Yeah.
But I tell my kids all the time, we're going to do stuff that you're probably never going to do in a game, but it's going to give you a higher mastery of the game, right? A higher mastery of this skill. If you could do this with 2 balls, or if you could do this, you're never going to do an in and out 5 times in a row, but maybe in a drill we will, and then we work on exploding out of it.
Yeah, exactly. Did I lose you guys?
I oftentimes will say, where do you get your shots? Like, what kind of offense do you run? And where do you touch the ball? right? Because if you touch the ball on the baseline when someone drives and kicks it, then we're going to work on you just sliding down or popping out and hitting shots. I'm not going to work on you touching the ball at the top of the key and making moves off of that, right? But I think to a degree, people watch the NBA and they say, oh, well, I want to be able to do that. But that doesn't match with who you are, right? Or what role you're playing on your teams.
Yeah. Well, you know, I was reading an article about you today, Katie, when you got hurt and you asked Coach Deegan, what you could improve in the off season, while you rehabilitate. And he said, I want you to be a better outside shooter. So you worked on your 3-pointer, your outside shooter, and you became a force from the outside. Well, today you'd have a personal trainer do that. But isn't that the biggest difference in the game? Is when you guys played, definitely when I played, there wasn't personal trainers. We just go out in the gym or in the backyard or on the courts, we work on our game. Now, personal training is probably the biggest difference in the game. Wouldn't you say?
Well, I will say, so my stepfather was a sports columnist, and going from 8th to 9th grade, he was going to the Summer Olympics, right? So he's going to Barcelona. And I grew up playing with him, and he would rebound for me and just taught me the whole game. And he tried to hire some college kids to work with me. He's like, I know it's going to be really boring. I'm going to be gone for a month. Like, let me offer these people some money to come work with you and essentially train you. And they said no, they didn't want to do it. And so then I would just, bike to the outdoor court, do my thing, go to the community center, and then come back and watch the Olympics. But it was like, dang, yeah, that would have been fun to have someone else to work out with. And I think for me, it's not that it's like Jose, our kid he's great in groups. If I'm working with a group, like in the summers, we're 8 to 10 outdoors, he's up, he's ready to go. He loves being in the group. But if I say, go do this on your own, that's much harder. And so I think that's the difference. It's not that the kids can't do it on their own. It's more that they just don't want to be alone. They don't want to do that lonely grind. And in terms of going to play pickup, that it doesn't really exist much anymore, right? You don't drive past outdoor courts and see, games upon, people playing and people waiting, and, you don't see that. So I think it's harder for kids who are serious about the game to go play, and just find another group of kids who want to play for the right reason, right? Who like really want to get better. We could go find games anywhere, right? There, I was at Sport and Health in Worldgate, outdoors in Sterling. There was a community center. There was a Sterling Middle School. There's Nottoway. There's places that you could go, and you knew there were multiple courts fronting. So if you wanted to go play, you could go play. It was almost like they separated themselves at Nottoway, at least like the A squad and the B squad. But the kids can't do that anymore. So everything is organized, and I don't know which came first, right? The organized or the kids not going to play, just go play pickup. If they weren't out there, so there was more organization so that the kids could have something to do. Plus the money making of running all these tournaments and all that kind of stuff. We didn't have trainers, but I know my stepfather worked with, like, he essentially trained me. And then, a lot of my teammates, anybody that would want to go work out, he would put us through workouts.
The AAU being changed since you guys played, and what are some of the positives and the negatives about the circuit?
When I started playing, Tim, did you play AAU ever?
I played 1 year. I played my senior year. That was it. After my senior year of high school, we only had one team basically in Northern Virginia, right. And we teamed up with, on my team was Bart Lamerson, Daryl Franklin, Howard Hogan. Who else did we have? It was basically that's like the Northern Virginia all region guys. Like that's what it was, right? And we would go over to DC, and you play a DC team at the time. I think it was Executive 3. It was the name of that team. And Don Reed played on that team, was a Georgetown former NBA player. There's a bunch of guys who ended up being playing in college, whatever. But you would go, you didn't play all these games every single weekend. It was only a few weekends. I think that's what way Katie describes her. She played a little bit more than me, but it wasn't like it was now. Definitely not.
It was an all-star of all-stars, right? Like, and there weren't a lot of spin-off teams, which we're guilty of it as well. We have our own program. We started our own program more so just to do it the right way, because I think it was getting a little out of control with people's egos being involved and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, when I played, I didn't play, like, first off, I played house league in 5th, 6th, 7th grade, like just rec. I just played rec league, 5th, 6th, 7th grade. And all of the spring, summer, fall was all just go play pickup, go work on my shot, do my own workouts. And then in 8th grade, we put together our own little team from our Fairfax County travel team and another team. And we played, I think, in the local AAU tournament and one other tournament in Annapolis. And that was it. Like, we practiced some and we played in those 2 tournaments. And then in 9th grade, I played for the Vogues and I played a year up. That team, I don't know how long they'd been together, but they had never qualified for nationals because at that point, one team from each region went to nationals. And there was a team in Maryland. I think one of the players went to UConn, one went to American. I forget where the other ones went, but they were really good and they always beat this team. So the year that I played was the first year 2 teams got to go because of the number of teams in the area. 2 teams qualified. So these guys are in 10th grade and had never been to a national tournament. Now it's Division 1, 2, 3, no team left behind, because it's all about, like, how many more people can we get to go and how many more teams can we get to come into the area to pay for hotels and restaurants and pay your tournament entry fee, and that kind of stuff. And I think that really waters it down, because at that point, everyone feels like they're great, right? Oh, well, I went and won D3 nationals, so I won a national championship, but you can't make a layup, right? Like, that's, and if you're not playing enough, let's spin off and have an extra team, where if you didn't make a team when we were younger, you just didn't make a team. And then you go get better to make the team the next year. So yeah, I think I think there's a lot of positives in what's going on, but I think there's a lot of negatives too. I think the kids are playing too many games. And it's hard. Like with our kids, we don't play that many games. And I know my kids are like looking left and right and they're like, yeah, they're playing and they're playing. Why don't we get to play more? And it's like, we got to protect your bodies. You don't need to play this many games, right? You need to go be a kid, have a weekend, have a sleepover, do whatever you want to do. And when we get in the gym, it's time to work hard and it's time to play hard. And wins and losses should matter. If you're playing 100 games in a year, if you lose 30 of them, 40 of them, half of them, whatever, it's like, oh, I got a game in an hour. It's okay. We'll move on. Right.
So when Azzi was younger, we had her play with a team, Team Soul, she was in the 1st grade, right? Or 2nd grade, I think it was.
Team Soul, no, she was 3rd grade. They were 4th.
3rd grade. So then it was good. It was a good situation for her to be around different kind of kids, not the suburban ones, but then more so like the kids who are basically, I'll say it, more Black kids, right? And so then the coach put out the schedule for the following year, and she was going to continue to play on our team, and we were going to combine it. Everybody was going to play on both teams or whatever, and there's different levels of coaching, styles of coaching. They were considered at the time one of the best teams in the country. And this age group, which doesn't mean anything at the time, but to get to go to the AAU Nationals, they're playing in the national championship pretty much every year. And when he put out the schedule for the following year, he had on his schedule, they were playing every single weekend. It was a 150 game schedule. And so Katie and I looked at each other. First of all, I said, wait a minute, how's this going to work with them playing with us when we play on our, like, every couple weekends we play, right? And then secondly, we're like, this isn't good. Azzi's not doing that. Like, we're not doing 150 games. Like, there's no reason for these kids to be playing 150 games. If they're playing 35 in the course of a spring and summer, 35 or 40, that is way more than they need to. That's more than any high school, right? And so we often we started at when she was younger, that her team did not play more than 2 times a month. 2 times a month, that was it. That's that max. And then when she got to the point where her team started a little earlier playing in exposure events, and then those time periods run a little longer. We played 3 times in that month, but we were very, very conscientious about overplaying and not doing too much. And doing just enough was perfect, and not overdoing it, because at a certain point, what are you reinforcing? You're not reinforcing anything new. You're just allowing the kids to kind of fall back on their bad habits, and they're never improving. They're only playing games,
Our goal is to practice, have more practice days than game days.
Yeah.
So I agree with that. So like Tim and I, one of our good friends is Jason Coleman, and his son Gibraltar Coleman, who signed at American, really nice player. He was on an AAU team this summer. I forgot which team it was. And he was like 8th, 9th, 10th man. So they would go on these trips. It's all weekend. It's expensive. Fly down there. And, there's no guarantee you're going to play a lot. It just depends on how things go. They got to try to win these these tournaments because I guess you advance to other tournaments. And so after a while, you begin to realize that Jason would tell me these stories. I'm like, well, you probably just stay home and just train and practice and get better, play locally. And he eventually went to a local team, had a great experience, played a lot, and it all worked out great. But it seemed like his AAU team had become a little bit of a distraction. Not that they were trying to be a distraction, just that they had a lot of kids they wanted to play, and everybody can't play. So you're spending a lot of money, and you're not getting a lot of basketball on that money.
Yeah. But let's just be real. Like those teams, and we're a circuit team, and we have a different circuit program. Our high school teams are on the Under Armour circuit, but our philosophy has always been like, would it be nice for us to go out and win the Under Armour national championship? Absolutely. There's going to be a Nike national champion. There's going to be an Adidas national champion. What does a national champion mean? Right. And people are going to probably look at us crazy from when they hear this, but at the end of the day, that's my ego. No one is going to ever ask you. I bet you the AAU coaches didn't ask him how many AAU games he won in the summertime. But you didn't ask him what his AAU team's record was in the summertime. So what is the goal of that? So the goal is to get that scholarship offer, right? But also to find ways to improve, stay healthy, right? Have a great experience amongst like-minded individuals and families, right? So that you look back on it and say, man, I had a great time that summer playing with you guys. And we've seen it to the point where kids have played in our program and they are continuing to be the best of friends. Some of them are 15 years removed from this, and they're still the best of friends from it. So offering the opportunity to be in a competitive environment, to continue the opportunity to improve, an environment where that's going to appreciate you and help you develop, I think is ultimately more important than the traveling around and trying to win all these tournaments, win all these games, because at the end of the day, the winning is only going to help me and my program continue to get the sponsorship dollars, right? And I'm like this, if we're teaching the right stuff, and if we're developing them the right way, and if we have a team that has chemistry and camaraderie, we'll be competitive when it's sometimes for us to need to be competitive. We'll be representing ourselves in the best light. We'll have college coaches on the sidelines watching our kids play. And at the end of the day, that's all we're in it for. If we happen to have a team, and Azzi had a team, several of the teams she played on when she was younger, we won a Nike national championship one year with her, right? But that wasn't the end goal. We just wanted to go out and be the best we could possibly be in that particular tournament, that particular game. And it just so happens that we weren't the most talented team. We were close. We weren't the most talented team, but we just went out and played, and they enjoyed playing with each other. And that's brought on all these great experiences that they'll have for the rest of their lives. And it's like, will they remember that they won Nike Nationals? Yeah, they probably remember that, but that's not going to be the first thing that they talk about. What's going to be the first thing they talk about is the car rides and what we call our fusion van. We have a conversion van when they all used to just pile in, and we would go from Tennessee to Atlanta to play in a tournament, and it was like the camaraderie. And what we remember from those things is our parents, who were like-minded and allowed us to coach the kids. We had parent meetings in the hotel lobby. We would sit around and we would talk about the games and drink beer and so on and so forth, and just have a good old time, because guess what? We're all spending a boatload of money and our vacations going to watch these games. So I think people need to start putting that in perspective and understand that it is not about putting your kid on the best team and winning a championship that summer. It's about the journey, and it's about helping them maximize those opportunities that are sitting in front of them.
Yeah.
And I would say if the coach you're with, that's their end goal. If they're selling you on some sort of national championship, if they're selling you on how good the quote unquote team can be, that's not that should tell you right there it's the wrong thing. I literally just finished my 8th grade practice a couple hours ago and told all of them at the end of practice, like, my assistant coach played at Georgetown. I played NC State in Georgetown, and then one of our former players was back, and she's like a legend at Christopher Newport. And she was back helping. I said, we've all been where you want to be. So I don't need to boost my ego at all. I'm not here because I'm making me feel good. I'm here because I want you to be the best that you can be. So whatever we tell you is not coming from a place of I want you to fail. It's coming from a place of I want you to succeed. And if that means that we need to work on our man-to-man defense, and we're playing a team that can't really shoot, so we could easily sit in a zone and win, we're going to stay in the man-to-man. because it doesn't matter if we win or not. In a year from now, or when you go to your high school tryout, if you make the varsity team, you're not going to look back and say, oh, but remember that Saturday in February where we lost because we didn't move to a zone? No, you're going to learn how to jump to the ball, how to bump the cutter, how to, box out, rebound. You're going to learn the details of what you need to learn so that when you move on to that next level, you're ready. And the pride for us is going to come in going and cheering you on when, you're playing at that level and at the next level. So it really doesn't have anything to do. We're not walking around. We won a Nike Nationals. I think they might've given us a sweatshirt that said national champion. Yeah. I don't think I've ever worn it. Like, that's not us. We've been there and done that. Our egos don't need, Tim's ego definitely doesn't need any more boosting. And neither does mine. Like, we're really confident and sure of who we are and why we're doing what we're doing. Yeah. And so, that it really is all about the kids. And I think when people get to know us, that shines through. But I do think parents get lost in the sparkly of like, oh, my kid could be on this really good team. And there's some parents who just don't understand, right? Like they don't know what they should be looking for. And that goes back to like the trainers. By the time they realize that it didn't matter if their kid won a championship or not, then it's too late, unfortunately. So parents need to surround themselves by people who can advise them in an unbiased way where, it's really about their kid. Now high school championship, that's different. You look at all these college kids' bios. I don't think I've ever I've read a ton of bios. I don't think I've ever read a bio of this kid won the Under Armour championship, this kid won, but I have definitely read state championships. I've definitely read, an all-state player. I've read USA basketball, but I've never read like what circuit they won a championship on. So yeah, I mean, people have to put their kids, like we talked about with Jose, you got to put your kid in the situation that best fits them. If it's a local team, it's a local team. If it's a team that's playing on a circuit on an advanced level and your kid is playing a lot and growing and developing, then great. But your journey isn't my journey, and I have to be okay with that, right? Like I can't compare my kid to, everybody else around. My kid's journey has to be what's best for them.
Yeah. Well, that's great, guys. Well, I want to talk a little bit about Azzi's high school days, but first I wanted to get back to your own high school days. And Katie, I saw you play a lot. You're an amazing player in high school. Why don't you talk a little bit about your journey? Because it's a little bit unique compared to what you hear about now. You started in the private schools and you came back to the public schools, and kids today, especially on the girls' side, which I didn't realize, the gulf between public and private is even bigger on the girls' side now on the boys, which is really surprising. So talk a little bit about your high school days and your development.
I do think back in the day, like the public school had really, really good players. I don't even remember my freshman year at O'Connell doing a lot of like preseason workouts, right? I think that maybe is what's changing, is that the public schools they're a little bit more hand-tied on what they can do to help develop the players, where the private schools have a lot more freedom. But yeah, I went to O'Connell. So I was a Catholic school kid. So Catholic school was always going to be the option. I actually grew up in Sterling. I should have gone to Parkview if I went to a public school. But Parkview was AA, and at that point, AA played basketball in the fall, and that just felt
that's right.
unnatural, right? So I was like, I can't play basketball in the fall. That's crazy. Plus the AA skill set was, the competition level was way lower. So we tried O'Connell, and I liked the school. It was just a little bit more of like with the coaching, like he was a little more like just wanted everyone to be equal. And I think me and my stepfather really felt like if I wanted to be the player that I thought I could be, I needed to be pushed at a higher level. More needed to be demanded out of me. And so I happened to play for Coach Deegan that year with the Vogues. And there were two really, really good high school coaches, public school coaches at that point. And it was Coach Deegan and it was Coach Gibson at Westfield. Those were the two, in our mind, the two best run programs. And so my parents bought a house in Vienna, and my mom and I moved into it. And I went to Madison. So, I mean, it was, I think what we sacrificed for our kids is what we learned growing up, right? Like what we saw our parents doing for us. And, and they wanted to put me in a situation where I could grow and develop. And Coach Deegan was awesome for me. That program was awesome. The community was awesome. And the competition level, like you said, we won 2 regional championships, but I never won a state championship. Right. Where now you look at the public schools and the teams that are winning the championships just in the whole state on any of the divisions, You throw St. John's, you throw McNamara, you throw Ireton, Paul VI, you throw them out there, and like, I don't think the public schools are competing, right? And the talent, like you said, has gone to all private. And I think there's good, like there's situations for kids, and some kids need to be in the public school, and they need to, and even though maybe it's a little bit lower of a level, for your next level, you shining at a level, you shining with things that you can do, and having the stats and having the the experience of being a leader, maybe of leading your team in scoring, and then you go play on circuit ball and maybe you have a more limited role. That's okay, because you've had this other experience over here. I think parents have to recognize what the journey is for their kids. Do you want your kid to go to high school and be on this stacked team and not be able to play till their senior year? And that might be good for your kid, but for this one over here, maybe it's not. So I think people have to look at, what the best option is for them. But for me, it was to go from Catholic to public. And, I was able to grow with my game. I was able to, I scored a lot. But I think I actually had a good number of assists as well. I handled the ball, I rebounded, I defended a little bit, not a whole lot, but a little bit. And I think I think that program allowed me to kind of grow into playing a large role. And then when you go to college, you're never going to play the same role that you played at the high school level, right? It's always going to be a little bit smaller. But I feel like the larger your skill set you have coming out of high school, you can then fit into, any role that you're needed to play in college. So.
That's great, Katie. Well, and Tim, you remind me of the perfect player for public school, because you're a guy who's growing into your body, and your skill set's improving. So you're getting a lot of confidence, and you're getting the score alive. If Tim Fudd as a junior would have gone to Paul VI in today's game, you would never have played very much. You'd have been on the bench. But you're kind of kid. You got a lot of experience. You played in front of huge crowds with a great coach. Lots of energy in that building at Robinson, I think, when you played in the Final Four, whereas Katie had the energy in the building at the George Mason Patriot Center. But it sounds for you, the public school was a perfect place for you to develop.
Oh yeah, I mean, listen, you're talking to a guy who was the last person chosen on their freshman team, and the last person chosen on the JV team, and then somewhere in that JV season, towards the back end of it, we were playing at Marshall, by the way. And they beat us, and they beat the brakes off of us. I tell you who was out there on the floor was one of the Lyle brothers at the time. The UVA guys.
Keith Lyle. Yeah.
So we played against those guys, and they beat the brakes off us. So I never played. I barely got off the bench, and as a coach, and this is one of the things I always like and look back on as a coach too, that we're humans, right? We're creatures of habit, and sometimes you don't see kids progressing or improving throughout the course of a season because we get stuck into our rotations. Same kids are playing same minutes over and over and over again, and it just so happened that this particular game, I got thrown in with 4 minutes to go in the game, garbage time, and scored 14 points in that 4 minutes. And from that point on, I was starting. Awesome. Because like all of a sudden people realized that I had improved, and you don't get to see all that stuff all the time in the middle of the season, because you're practicing and you're constant game preps every in and out, so you're not really seeing that improvement. And I was starting to kind of grow into my body, get coordinated a little bit, and where football, things were much more natural for me. Baseball was more natural than basketball was not a natural movement for me. And unlike today's kids, we weren't dunking in the 8th grade at being 6'2" and 6'1". We were goofy, uncoordinated kids. That's what it was, right? For the most part, Grant Hill was an anomaly. But that without having that high school experience, the way it went for me, I would have never been playing. I would have quit basketball a long time ago. If I was at the Paul VIs or at the time Flint Hills, I was not good enough at the time to go to places like that. Maybe back into my senior year, I could have made that happen, but no, that was the high school, public school route was the perfect thing for me.
Yeah. And Azzi, being a top player, and St. John's is a great school, could she have gotten the same kind of development at a good public school in AAU? Those two together would have been good enough, or did she really need to be at a top level high school program as well?
Yeah, she needed that. so there's so many different things that happen at the public and private. And I hate to say this, make these comparisons, because we have kids that did both things. We got kids in the public, we got kid who went private. And I've coached private all my life. So all my coaching career, outside of my stint in college. But what St. John's offered for her and offers now is like they have, I think, 6 strength coaches on staff. So we get that piece of it that the head basketball coach doesn't have to worry about. You know, when I was coaching at Carroll, I had to worry about, I was a strength coach. I was sometimes a trainer. I was sometimes, you know, I had to do everything.
You're a sports psychiatrist.
Everything, like the counselor, you know, checking grades. And but at St. John's, it offered up so much more than just basketball piece of it. So you get the strength and conditioning piece of it. You got the basketball piece of it, but then you also got other kids who were high-level kids that were aspiring to play at a high level as well. And so you were surrounded by this desire, and it Azzi was unique in the fact that the cream always rises to the crop, as they say. She was that cream. She always figured out a way to rise to the level of expectations and meet the expectation or exceed the expectations. So that necessarily the push wasn't there, but in her freshman year, it was good, because she went in as a meek, shy freshman. Although she had friends that were on the team, she just basically acquiesced and deferred to everybody else. And it wasn't until one of her teammates, Sydney Wood, who's a senior at Northwestern playing there, got hurt and was out for 10 games, where Azzi was our leading scorer, but it was averaging like 18 or 19 points a game. And then Sydney was at like 14 or 15. And then the Malou, who went to North Carolina, was at like 12 or 11 or 12 points a game. It wasn't until Sydney went out the lineup that we got to see the true Azzi. And it was a natural transformation. And then 3 games after Sydney went out the lineup, it was 41, 41, 37. And everybody was like, oh, wait a minute. And from that point on, everybody knew this was her team. And she was just letting things go the way it was going, because that's her natural personality, you know.
Pretty much a lot like Jose too, where she wanted the team to be successful. So
yes,
you know, if she needed to make the extra pass, she's making the extra pass, and she's definitely not the kind of kid who's going to walk in and be like, "Hey, I'm here and I'm great." So you know, everybody, you know, she did everything she needed to do her freshman year, from cleaning up balls at the end of practice to, you know, I mean, she was a freshman and she was happy to take on that role as like, I'm low man on the totem pole. So whatever I need to do to pay my dues and to make this team successful, I'm in it. But then
there was times when Coach Scribner, it was like other coaches were in awe of her, because she would go out and play and she would be like so much more skilled and just fluid than everybody else on the floor. They'd be like, oh my God, geez, this is unbelievable. And I remind them, I was like, listen, she's here, so you got to coach her. I don't care what it is. If it's something that you can improve upon her or impress upon her, you got to do it, because she's not perfect. And she has things she needs to work on. And for him, he's a stickler about passing, about having backspin on your passes. Because nowadays, that's something that's skipped in all of this training and the AAU stuff. Nobody sits there and goes passing lines anymore.
Oh, is that right? No.
Oh, no, that's done. That's over with. So at the time, Azzi's passes were like knuckleballs. She could pass the ball from 3/4 court to the other end of the basket on a line, whether it would be a knuckleball. And he was like, backspin, Azzi, backspin. And she left practice one day and she was like, Dad, why is he always yelling at me about my backspin? My passes get there. I pass the ball better than everybody else. I'm like, listen, he's the coach. That's what he wants you to do, and you got to do it. So, you know, it was great for him to find something, right? You got to find something, because she's not perfect.
There's something about that nice underspin pass. I remember at 10, you were only a sophomore. So you weren't there when Chantilly played Kenny Harris in Petersburg. But when he passed the ball full court, the ball would just float backwards out of his hand. It was beautiful to watch him, just that full court pass with that backspin. You know, I really hadn't thought about that in years, but you just reminded me of that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's weird. It's not a skill that's no longer taught.
That's interesting. Yeah. I don't have kids. I don't have kids that play. Well, look, so she made a great choice in college. She played Coach Gino, who was at UVA when I was there. He was coaching on the women's program back in the early 80s.
Go Huskies.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. So Tim, I know you're part. Chris Nocky told me he saw you at the state tournament. So you had to earn your way on the Division I roster, and obviously AZ started on top with UConn. But Katie, how did you end up at NC State and then Georgetown?
Things were obviously way different back then. Women's games
Yeah.
weren't on TV a whole lot.
Right. Mhm.
And so I don't know, I guess it was pretty idealistic, and I just chose the school that I felt worked the hardest to get me, which was NC State. They did a really good job of recruiting me down there. But then when I got there, things weren't really what they said they were going to be. Um, I don't know. I think if I went back now, I think I'm way more confident, way more self-assured, and that stuff wouldn't have bothered me. Which is something that we tried to work with Azzi on to make sure that she was ready for that next level. But yeah, I mean, my freshman year just didn't. I mean, I was ACC Rookie of the Year, so it wasn't about playing time. It was more about like I just lost my joy for the game.
Mm.
I played my whole year injured. I had fractured my ankle and basically played the whole year on it. And I don't know, it just got to a point where I just didn't look forward to going to practices, and I just didn't love the game anymore. And it just seemed a little silly to be playing a game that you didn't love. So when I decided to transfer, I was more of the mindset of like, I don't want to hear from coaches. Like, I'll let you know if I'm interested. And I went to visit South Carolina. They'd just gotten a new coach. And I was really intrigued by them, really liked them, but they were last place in the SEC. And I was like, dang, I only have 3 years left. I want to make another NCAA tournament. Do they have a chance? Like, can they? And the SEC was good, but at that point, like they weren't getting 8 teams in that like they're getting now. And so I just decided, all right, I don't think that they can make the leap in my 3 years there. And then I went to visit Alabama, and it just reminded me too much of NC State. I like the coaches, but it just was too much more like I wanted to be around people that worked hard and like kind of had the same mindset as me. And so then my parents were
Big
like,
Georgetown.
"You going to Alabama or South Carolina?" And I was like, "No." And like, wait, you have to go to one place or the other. And so then my stepfather, I grew up watching Georgetown, and my stepfather was like, well, Georgetown did. I think that point the Big East was split into Big East 6 and Big East 7, and they won whatever one they were in. So he's like, and then they recruited the 6'10" kid from Africa, and they had a point guard coming in and a 6'4" kid from Louisiana. And so we went, and I was like, I don't really like the school. I don't really like the campus. And my stepfather was like, you've never seen the campus. You've driven up to McDonough and gone in the gym, and that's it. Like, we went and toured, and then I was like, all right, fine, let's do it. Right. Let's go. And then, the 6'10" kid didn't come for another 2 years because she had visa issues. So just like, I don't know, it just wasn't all that it was cracked up to be. And, in hindsight, maybe not the greatest of decisions in terms of furthering my basketball career. I went from being like one of the top 5 freshmen in the country to who are you? Right. Like, I led the Big East in scoring for 2 years in a row and couldn't make first team Big East because, Svetlana Abrasimova, averaged 12 points, but sacrificed herself for the good of UConn and, was player of the year and all that. It just was different. Like it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't the greatest for furthering my basketball career, but I will say I wouldn't have Azzi. I wouldn't have Tim. Hey, boo. Life wouldn't be the same. So as corny and cliche as it sounds, everything happens for a reason. And our journey is what it's supposed to be. No matter how frustrating it is in the moment, there is a reason for it. And it puts us in the positions that, that we're meant to be in.
Yeah. Well, that's great, Katie. And Tim, your journey is a journey that wouldn't happen today because you are the kid that went to a school and didn't average a lot, and you had to work your way up. Nowadays, you'd go into the portal, you'd find something easier or different. Who knows? You sat there at American, and you worked your way to first team all league. So talk a little bit about your AU journey.
Yeah. So Coach Docky recruited me, like you said, he came out to my state tournament. So get that. I have to be. It was actually a regional tournament, so I had to be still playing in the regional tournament at Robinson. That's where he saw me. So if we didn't win or advance to that point, he would have never seen me. And or they would have to get some videotape or something like that. And I don't even remember. I guess we did videotape games back then, but who knows what would have happened. But so he called me a project. I remember sitting in his office and he said, you're a project. I got a scholarship, last scholarship I have, got 15 guys. I want to give you a scholarship. You're a project. We don't know what you're going to do, how you're going to turn out. You're skinny. At the time I was like maybe a buck 85, maybe a buck 85, 6'7", buck 85. And it was, AU was happened to be 8 miles from my house. And my mom loved, like you said, my mom loved to go to games. So it's like, it made sense why I was getting recruited by a bunch of D2s, Bentley College. Who else? I forget the other D2s, but there was several D1s, probably like 6 or 7 D1s. UNC Asheville was one of them. And I almost decided to go there. I had never been to Asheville in my life. And then
nice.
AU popped in at the last minute.
Hmm.
And then when they popped in the last minute, I was like, I'm close to home, and a mama's boy, and I'm like, okay, that's where I'm going. And so when I went, um, I remember playing pickup the first year I was there, and a guy named Ron Draper, who had played there for a couple years and was now going pro over in Japan, was back playing, and he's 6'8", and when I tell you, it was like chiseled out of stone. I mean, those guys were massive, athletic, and we played pickup, and every ball that came off the basket, if he was standing in the middle of the lane, if the ball went left, he rebounded. If the ball went right, he rebounded. That was like, I can't play here. This is not, I can't do that. Like, I mean, I averaged probably a double at Chantilly, but this dude is like rebounding from one side of the backboard to the other side of the backboard, and he's going to play pro. I'm like, I don't know if I could do this. And not understanding that as you mature, you get to a point where your athleticism rises to that kind of level, right? But my freshman year, I was supposed to be redshirted, and I wasn't redshirted because we had a 7-footer who led the league in block shots the year before, and knock was not easy. He was tough, and this kid ended up coming into the season out of shape,
Hmm.
and he was pissed about it. So he would hold him after practice and make him do all this extra stuff, just basically busting his butt, and then breaking him down to get him to start working harder. Kid goes, I could call him a kid. He was a grown man at the time. He was a senior. He was a rising senior. He goes, Coach, can I get a drink of water? And they had already taken the water bucket away from the court, so we had water fountains behind the wall in Bender Arena. So he went around the wall to go get some water, and kept running up the steps and out the door to the dorm. Grabbed his car keys. Never changed. Never packed his stuff up. Got in his car and drove home. I mean, somewhere from out in Maryland, and drove home and never came back.
Wow.
And that was a night before our first exhibition game against this Russian Federation team that was coming to do exhibition games, and I couldn't play it. Just told me you can't play in the game. We're gonna redshirt you. If we play you in the game, that means you can't redshirt. Blah 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 blah. And I was disappointed, but I was like, okay, whatever. And then the next day, it all changed. It's like, oh, you're playing tonight. So that was it. But I didn't play. I was like, a 2-minute guy, like a sub. I was a break guy, right? And it wasn't until one of my teammates, Craig Sedmack, had gotten injured, and it hurt his knee, and so I'm just partying. I'm partying and having fun in college, and I know I'm only gonna play a couple minutes a game, maybe 2 minutes, and it's whatever. I can hang out till 4 a.m. and play those 2 minutes real well, right? And so we're on our way to play at Maryland, and this joker the rumor starts in the bus that Craig ain't playing. And Maryland's top 25. Walt Williams, all those guys are there, right? Johnny Rhodes, X-Ray Hip, all these guys. I mean, they're freaking good. And so I'm like, oh, dang. So they're like, the coaches didn't say anything, get in the locker room, and my name is on the board starting. And I'm like, I was out till 4:30 in the morning the night before at a club, hanging out, doing my thing, and I'm like sleeping on the bus on the way over, nodding off. That was the last time I ever went out before a game. I truly got humbled. I was not ready to play, but I was just have been thrust in this lineup, and had to beg my way to stay in the lineup at practice. They were like trying to try all these other different guys out in the starting position, and I went to Daryl Brooks, who recruited me, and was like, Coach Brooks, why not me? Why can't I start? And I became the guy who basically just was the post defender. I defended every good post player, and start shutting guys down and just creating havoc that way. And that was my way of staying on the court, was becoming being a defender. And I was like, well, at least I'm playing. I'm okay with that. And then the next year, I ended up averaging like 10 points a game. And my junior year, I led the conference in scoring at like 20 a game. And
It's
so
crazy.
that started to kind of manifest itself. But things started happening. My game evolved. I was no longer a block to block guy. I could still play on the block, but in high school, I was turnaround jumper, layup, drop step layups at the rim, transition dunks type of thing, where my game started evolving, and I was able to step out to 3-point line and score outside, inside, and I kind of had started to develop some versatility in my game. So it changed up a little bit.
It's a great career. One I wish I would have had. So Jose's journey, and it's still to be written. He's only a junior. He's got another year, but he looks like to me a kind of kid that could definitely play on a D3 roster. And
Yep.
And it all depends on what happens next year. He could continue to improve. And my son was a D3 level soccer player, but he chose to go to the school of his choice. That it was not a soccer opportunity for him. He went to UVA, which is a pro level type soccer program.
Yeah.
But he would have had to have made sacrifices to play college soccer. And we couldn't afford to send him to one of these expensive Division III schools. So what do you guys tell the kids that you train who have Division III opportunities, especially when they're great students, and then it could very well interfere with their academic progress if they decide to keep playing basketball?
Yeah. Well, Katie actually had a phone call tonight with one of our former trainees and kid that played for our AAU program about this. It was national was a national district player of the year, was it? Over at Edison, and just about playing in college and so on and so forth. So, Katie, why don't you run
Well,
with that?
hers was different. She just fell out of love with the game and doesn't want her life to be basketball. So she's going to go to school, and she said she's going to stay active and maybe do intramurals or club ball or something like that, but have the freedom to do a little bit more and experience a little bit more of college life. And I think you get kids who are like hemmed up on, I got to go D1, I got to go D1, because D3 somehow is this negative, right? And we tell kids all the time, playing at any level is special, right? It's not club ball. It's not intramurals. Like, you're going, you have a locker room, and you're battling day in and day out for a common cause, right? Like, we want to win this championship, or we're going to win these games or whatever. And we've had a couple kids, my best friend from high school included, she wanted D1, and she was so upset that she didn't go D1, and she went to Marymount and had an amazing career. And she was able to do other things. Like, basketball was a large part of her life, but she had more freedoms because their schedule revolved around what their classes were. Their classes didn't revolve around what basketball was, right? Another player who's actually upstairs right now was a multi-sport athlete at George Mason High School, wanted so badly to be D1, but just she's 5'10" and slowish, had a great shot, real high IQ, but maybe if she was a step quicker, or maybe nowadays with more exposure, there was no Twitter, Instagram, and all that kind of stuff when she was coming out of high school. So the coaches that saw her, only the coaches that sat on our games. She went to Christopher Newport. She was Sweet 16, Elite 8, Final Four. She's a legend on that campus. Right? Had a great career, loved her experience, but was so unhappy to go there to start with, because she had this dream of it was D1 or bust. And so, there's kids who love basketball and want that to be part of their life, but they don't want it to be their life. And we know, having a D1 kid, these coaches can say on the schedule, you're off tomorrow. And guess what? Tomorrow morning, they can say, psych, we have practice, or you need to be at this media, or you're going to this, volunteer event, or, we're having film, or, and you have to jump. You can't be late. You can't miss it. You can't say, oh, well, I had this. I was going to go to lunch with my friend. You can't do that, and it's really hard for them to be involved. Azzi's on the student athlete advisory committee, like this leadership thing at school. But there's a lot of that she misses because, they practice, or she's got, whatever else they have to do, where D3 D3, you have a more well-rounded life. And so if you want to play your sport, and you have to be okay with going to a smaller school, there's not, huge D3 schools like there are the big Division I states and state colleges and universities. So some kids will say, I really want to play, but I also really want the experience of having a big football team and going and being in a frat, or what, you kind of have to figure out what you want. If you really, really want to play, then you're willing to sacrifice some of this other stuff. If you kind of want to play, but you really want this big college life experience, then this has to go, right? Then you're not going to be able to play and you go to the big school. But that just goes back to everybody's journey is their own. And there's kids who could have gone D1 who opt to go D3. Like these top 25 D3 schools are filled with Division I kids who said, you know what, I want a better work-life balance. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? And don't poo-poo their dream, because that's what they want. And there's kids who have to go D1 because that's the only way they can go to school, right? And so they're willing to take a small role on whatever school will take them, and they're taking the scholarship. And maybe it's not the greatest experience or greatest opportunity, but you know what? They're using their sport to get their education. So, I think, and we tell our kids, playing at any level is phenomenal. So you figure out what level you belong at, what level is going to work for you. And that's the same with Jose, right? Like he's not big enough, fast enough, quick enough to be a D1 kid. Do I think that he would be great in like a military type school? Yeah. So what are we looking at? D3 military, Coast Guard, Merchant Marines. Is just those two, right? Or does he want to go to, a school somewhere in a small town in Pennsylvania, right? Like that's all stuff that he has to figure out, and trying to get him to figure it out without thinking what we want him to do, right? Like this is your journey and you figure out what you want, and we're going to be here to support you. So trying to fill that role as a parent, and having him recognize that if he wants to play, this is the level he's going to play at, right? That he's not qualified to play at the other level. So if you want big school, then you don't play. Right. And that's okay.
The good thing about it is that like we've had experience. So we sat him down, or he finally sat down and asked, and I told him, I said, listen, when you want the information, I have a lot of information for you. But I'm only going to give it to you if you want it. Because if you don't want it, then there's no need me like giving you this information about where I think that you are in terms of your development, what level I think you could play, and what schools you should be trying to target, because it's just going to be like a fruitless conversation. So when you're ready, I'll have that conversation. When he sat us down and said he wanted to have the conversation, so we talked to him, and I said, listen, my estimations are you're a Division III player. You're not. That's where you are. That does not mean that you have to stay there. I gave them a situation in my journey where I started as a Division III player, my borderline Division III, Division I player my senior year, and when D2s came in, and all the way to the point where I went on the D3 official visit. I went to Hampton Sydney on official visit my senior year of high school, and I said, you can change. Just because someone's saying that about you now doesn't mean that you stay that way. You can change those things, but this is where you are now. And so I think you have an opportunity to do that, and it'll be a great opportunity if you want to play. So that the most Division IIIs are high academic institutions. It's not easy. So you're going to be challenged in more ways than one.
So, Azzi had a phenomenal freshman year at UConn. They got to the final game. They lost to South Carolina. She started the final game. Amazing. What do you think she learned at freshman basketball at such a high level? And what kind of development did you see in Azzi's game?
She learned not to get sick in the championship game.
I would say, obviously there's a lot of basketball she's learning. Like one thing she said we didn't do a good job of teaching her was backdoor cuts. They're big on those. So she learned a lot about that, right? There's a lot of details of the basketball world that she learned, but I think the most important thing that she learned was, she grew a confidence in who she is and how to have a voice and speak for herself, right? Because she played all last year injured. And had she been more sure of herself, she probably could have negated the major injury that kept her out for so long. So she ended up running differently and creating a secondary injury in her foot, which was a stress fracture, that kept her out for 8 weeks or something like
9
that.
weeks, yeah.
And so this year she gets injured again. And she's very more, she's very much sure of herself, and like, this is what's bothering me, this is what isn't bothering me, and knowing that she can communicate and have an open line of communication with the trainer, with the strength and conditioning coach and the coaches, and being able to say, I can't go right now, right? Like, this is bothering me and I'm not ready to play. Or, and so she's trying to come back now. And she says she doesn't want to come back and be a shell of herself, right? She needs to come back when she's fully healthy. And I think that's a huge step, right? Because you go from high school where everyone cares about you and, you're this family, and you go to college and it's a business. And we tell kids that all the time, but it's hard for them to wrap their minds around it, right? It's about wins and losses, and it's this business where you have to perform. And even though the coaches don't want to push you to play injured, there's that that subtle feel in the background. I don't think anyone's saying like, you're not ready to play, but play anyhow. But there's this push of, I want to be there for my teammates and I want to be there for my coaches. And I think I can do this. So I'm going to go ahead and play, and I'm not 100%. And so Azzi, looking at like her ability to self-advocate and all that kind of stuff. I think that's the largest growth that she's had is her ability to kind of speak up for herself and have those tough conversations, and really feel sure about where she is as a player and a person. Like, I know I work hard. I know I'm going to be back at some point. When that is, I don't know. And, and we're going to stay in touch, and we're going to, stay in contact with this journey. But when I'm ready is when I'm ready.
Tim, do you want to add to that, or?
No, I mean, I don't think I would add to that is that she's learning to be, the self-advocacy is one thing, but she's learning who she is, and so I think college is really the place where you start to develop your personality and understand how to deal with certain things. She's getting a wealth of understanding, knowledge, opportunities with the NIL stuff, and learning to be able to deal with these businesses and the business people that she's meeting and talking to, and representing herself really, really well. So I think it's been a great experience. She loves it up there. Obviously the injuries have kept her off the court a little too long for all of our likings, but I think she put everybody on notice earlier this year what she's capable of doing, when she started the season off averaging almost 30 a game. So it's really good.
Well, her parents did a great job coming off serious injury, and I'm sure she will too, because the training and the care is so much better now. So I'm sure she'll get there. And it's really exciting, guys, that when Katie was thinking about playing pro basketball, it was almost kind of a distraction to your career because you couldn't make the kind of money where it'd make a huge difference. Now, Azzi can really do some incredible things with the pro opportunity, because women's sports, basketball, soccer, other sports, and they're really coming a long way. So it's exciting. You guys are amazing players, amazing parents, amazing coaches. I really appreciate you taking time to talk to me. I really enjoyed this. Sorry again, it took you so long. I kept you so long, but just so much great information that I think people are really going to enjoy listening to. So I really appreciate you guys doing this.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Appreciate you, Julian.
Yeah. All right, guys, I'll see you at the game this week.
I'm helpless when I'm ocean away.